The African Union General Assembly declared 2009 to 2019 as the African Decade for Youth, due to its recognition of youth identity and politics as a global driving force for social transformation. On today's episode of the Osasu Show, we will be exploring youth inclusion in governance. As you probably remember, we've covered this topic before, but we are revisiting it because some laudable progress has been made by two fairly young individuals. Samson Itodu, a civil society and youth advocate, and Honorable Tony Nwulu, member of the House of Representatives. Honorable Nwulu proposed the Not Too Young to Run bill, which seeks to reduce the age qualification for the office of the president from 40 years old to 30 years old, governor 35 to 30, Senate 35 to 30, House of Representatives 30 to 25, and State House of Assembly from 30 to 25 respectively. The bill, which also seeks to mainstream independent candidacy into Nigeria's electoral process, has passed its second reading. Stay tuned for these interviews. Samson Itodu, thank you for joining me on today's program.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. So tell me, why do young people need to get involved in politics?
The entire concept of democracy is hinged on participation, and citizens have intrinsic rights of suffrage, so they have to participate in elections by casting their votes. Because the social contract that exists between the government and the people exists as a result of that relationship that people have with their government. And what happens at elections is surrendering your rights and vesting them into an individual or a group of individuals to hold in trust for you. And they take decisions on your behalf by ruling the affairs of state, and it impacts on livelihoods as well as development. So it's important that people actually, and young people actually participate in the political process.
Exactly, and young people are participating by voting for people that they can rely their trust in, and they are people who embody what leaders should, what they see in leaders. So why do young people actually need to govern? Why do young people actually need to lead in the forefront? Why can't they take the back seat?
The question is why shouldn't they? When you talk about leadership, when you talk about policy making, it's not the exclusive preserve of certain individuals. It's about the people. And when you say democracy is not government of the elderly, for the elderly, or by the elderly, it is government of the people, and young people are part of this category that we call the people. If you look at the resourcefulness of young people, and I make bold to say that the democracy that we enjoy today came as a result of youth participation. If you look at our let's look at pre-independence, the nationalist struggle was led by a lot of young people, the like of J.C. Vaughan, Ernest Ikoli, Samuel Akinshire. In fact, the first person who moved the motion for independence was actually a young person. So young people have been very, very active, and down to the struggle for return to democracy in 1999, they were all led by young people who were actually in their prime. If you look at what's happening even in the Middle East and in different parts of the world, nations today that have moved from underdeveloped to developing down to developed nations today came as a result of the ability to tap into the resourcefulness of young people.
A lot of people are saying young people have been chanting and clamoring for power, but yet they can't handle it. They do not have the skills, the expertise, the experience to handle such integral positions. So why should they reduce the age of candidacy for the president, the most powerful position in the entire country, to 30 years old from 40?
If they say young people don't have experience, why do we have a 30 or 31-year-old as a commissioner of finance in Cross River State? Why do we have a 32-year-old as a speaker of the Katsina State House of Assembly? Why do we have a 34-year-old also as the speaker of the Kaduna State House of Assembly? That is actually a narrative that promotes this alienation and exclusion. What we fail to understand is when you exclude a particular segment, and a very important segment. I don't want to anchor my conversation on the electoral demography that is even in favor of young people. That is not about, it's not about the youth population. It's about the capacity that they bring to bear. So when you talk about experience, I have engaged policymakers at international, local, and national level, and I tell you that there are a lot of people who are in power today who don't have the kind of capacity and the experience that young people do have. So that argument holds no water. I agree that there is need for experience. But tell me, when you talk about age, it is neither here nor there. There are people who are 21, who are even 20, who take very, very fantastic decisions. Yeah, so Stella Odua tweeted from her handle to say she went for an ECOWAS meeting, ECOWAS parliament meeting, and she met a 25-year-old female who was also at that conversation table. The point is, you cannot exclude young people if you want to advance, whether in your economy or in your political development, because of the resilience, because of the capacity and the intellect that young people bring to bear. We're in a knowledge-driven age, and a lot of young people today have demonstrated will, capacity, and commitment towards governance. So they should be given the space, because that's what democracy is about. And it's also about intergenerational dialogue. The point is, people shouldn't look at this bill as trying to exclude the elderly. No. Young people need to be at that decision-making table to be able to tap from the experience of the elderly. It's just going to create that space for young people to participate at the local and the national level. We will get to a point, whether we like it or not in this country, when a 30-year-old can be president of Nigeria. I strongly believe that. And so that space should be created for young people. In fact, I call on the National Assembly, the Senate and the House to even go a step further by aligning the voting age with the eligibility age.
So when you vote, if you can vote, you can run.
Because the same
so
knowledge.
Would you be comfortable having an 18-year-old, because that's our voting age here in Nigeria, would you be comfortable having an 18-year-old as your president? If
that individual has got the capacity, the moral capital, the integrity capital, and the political capital, I see no reason why that person shouldn't be given the opportunity. That is what democracy is about. You cannot exclude. You see, the principle of democracy is hinged on the concept of inclusion. Mm-hmm. If you take inclusion out from it, democracy loses its vitality.
I agree with you as well. I'm a young person.
So
I agree with
create
you about
space
the
for that
inclusion.
person.
It's definitely good it's proper. That's what a democracy, that's what a true democracy is, to include young people in participation, active participation in politics. However, when we're talking about capacity, when we're talking about expertise, Nigeria is a very complex country. Okay, we're dealing with terrorism issues now. We're dealing with Boko Haram, the remainder of it. President Buhari has done a good job in curtailing that. Now we have the Fulani headsmen issue. So you have a general, a 74-year-old general who has experience, right? Versus an 18-year-old who has no experience in this, in dialoguing with Niger Delta militants, tumbling economy. So these issues, who would you rather pick when it comes to an election day? Someone with that much experience or someone with so little experience?
And I ask you, where has experience brought us? Where has it taken us? We've got fuel subsidy actually taken. If you talk about the level of criminality, it's on a high increase. If you talk about the economy, we are going through a lot of economic hardship. Tell me, what has experience earned us over the last couple of years? Nothing. I agree with the argument about experience, yeah. But how can someone gain experience if you don't give them access into the process? There are a lot of people today who have assessed their political process with little or no experience. So that argument, for me, holds no water. Yes, experience is key, but you need to give people an opportunity. And we have a culture in this country, and I think Nigeria is one of the countries in Africa that doesn't trust its young people. Young people are deemed to be merchants of political instability. We're very adventurous. These stereotypes that are used to exclude young people from the process.
Would you really call it a stereotype?
It is.
If you look at the political thuggery that has been going on, the Niger Delta Avengers, all the agitations, the IPOB, MASOB agitations, these are young people at the forefront of these agitations. So would you really say it's a stereotype, or young people are the ones causing some of the issues that we see in our society today?
You know, I find it very interesting when I hear people say young people are the cause. There are structural issues that we need to deal with. What drives young people involvement in political thuggery or even violence? There are different studies that have shown. One is injustice in the system. If people don't feel committed to a state, they take up arms against the state. And that's why the people who have run the affairs of state must ensure, one, they stabilize the economy, they provide jobs, you address the stomach infrastructure question. It's very, very key. And then you give them access. Give space to young people. It's a combination of the elderly and the experience or the intellect of young people joined together that will move this country forward. Definitely. And not having the elderly continually subjugating young people and not giving them space to contribute to development.
I was at a conference earlier this year where we were actually talking about the same thing, youth participation in politics. And one of the key speakers told us that we need to kind of deconstruct why we're clamoring for change, why we're clamoring for inclusion, right? So we were able to break it down and say, young people, we have a better vision for ourselves and our future than the older generation can. So I don't know if you agree with that, and if so, can you tell me how young people can kind of envision a different Nigeria and implement it versus, that of an older person in power?
The overall, and I make this point that when young people clamor for power, they need to be clear on what they want to do with power. And there's just one objective, which is the common good of the common man. And the reason why you have the governability crisis that we see today, it's because government has failed in its responsibility to provide for the welfare and the security of its citizens. And so there's just one goal and one vision, that a country that cares for its citizens. Is it too much to ask for? Give young people the space. Amend this law. Give them the space to also contribute for the common good of every Nigerian.
Samson Utodu, thank you so much for joining me on today's program.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. We'll take a break and we'll be right back on the Osasu Show. Honorable Tony Wolu, thank you for joining me on today's program.
Thank you, you're welcome.
You recently proposed a bill in the House of Representatives called the Not Too Young to Run bill, which just recently scaled through second reading. Can you tell me more about this bill and why it is of interest to you?
Yeah, the bill is to alter certain sections of the Constitution to allow the youths more inclusiveness in our politics. More like mainstreaming the youths in today's politics. And we're seeking for a reduction in age from currently the president is for 40. We're seeking for it to be reduced to 30. The governors to 30, senators to 30, then the House of Representatives and House of Assemblies, respectively, at 25.
Great. So why is this bill important to you?
It is important because if you look at the youth demography, you would agree with me that we have the youths actually occupying more in population. And if you also talk about those driving the economy, it's the youth, and those that are being affected more by negative policies, unpopular policies of the government, it's also the youth. We'll talk about the unemployment, it's the youth. We'll talk about restiveness, it's the youth. I believe the youths are actually being discriminated to a very huge extent. A country without its youth is as good as doomed.
What are the technical processes? We've passed second reading now. The bill the not too young to run bill has passed the second reading thanks to you and and Honorable Yakubu Dogara, who's the Speaker of the House of Representatives. So what's the next stage?
The bill has been committed to the Committee on Constitutional Review.
Okay.
Yes, so they would have to, work here and there if there's any work to be done at all, but I am optimistic that the bill will still come out the way it went in because, one, it has two legs. We'll have that seeking for reduction of age, and on the other hand, we're also asking that independent candidacy be allowed in our polity so that people can, you mustn't like the ideologies of other political parties. You could just come up with your own ideology and run. I believe that's also one more thing that will help the youths because currently the cost of even the primaries, conducting primaries, vying for all those for most of the political parties are quite alarming on the very high side. Most youths might not be able to afford it unless, of course, the political parties now begin to also review, which I believe they will eventually when this thing is passed, review their constitution, also allow for a huge reduction on their forms and their processes so that could also accommodate the youth. And moreover, also set up a quota system so that the youth has to occupy a certain percentage in the party structure.
I was recently in Kenya where I interviewed a member of parliament as well, who's also a gubernatorial aspirant. And he proposed a bill in parliament that states youth and women are entitled to 30% of all government procurement. Is this something you'd like to emulate here in Nigeria?
Yeah, it's laudable. It's not bad. I believe as we've started this, we'll continue to, first and foremost, let's have the youths in governance, in the government, and let's have them in the process of government, and let's see them also defend issues relating to youth. Because I always tell people, nobody can tell your story better than you, and nobody can represent you better than yourself. Self-help is always the best help. So let the youths come in and help themselves. Let them chart the way forward for themselves. There is nothing stopping us from getting to all that extent. As time goes on, I will personally continue to also champion bills that would continue to put the youths out there.
Do you honestly see a 30-year-old becoming president of Nigeria?
Would there be anything wrong with that?
I would love that, but do you see that happening? Well,
seeing is a factor of your feet and how far you can see. I remember in the scripture, they say, the farther you see, the much you can occupy. So if we have a 30-year-old youth seeing himself becoming the president of Nigeria and works towards it, I see nothing. Once this bill is passed, that's the most important thing. We've handed it over to the youths. And once that is done, nobody is stopping you. If you can conceive it, if you can dream it, you can achieve it. If that's what you want, and in most cases, I also see leadership as something that is called by God. So If God has anointed one 30-year-old to come and lead us out of the doldrums, why wouldn't we vote for him? That's the question. What we need is development. What we need is someone that is capable of taking this country to a greater height. You know, we all yearn for progress, and we need to fast track a whole lot of that, because at the moment we're actually not running at the speed we should to catch up with other developing economies. You know, so if we have a youth champion, that would I would love to see that.
Yes.
I would love
Maybe
to see that.
Maybe you can be that youth champion?
Well, I would love to see that. Like I said, it could be you too.
Do you have plans to run for president one day?
Well, if I am called
okay.
to do so, I will.
Okay.
Same way, goes to you too. Who knows? You might wake up next morning and occupy this position I am in. You know, I run election in Lagos State. So nobody says you can run election in Abuja, in Lagos State too. You know, so that's one thing you must always have at the back of your mind.
Definitely.
But I would love to see more youths, more vibrant people.
Exactly, and this bill will do just that. Create a level playing field for young people to get actively involved.
The National Assembly will be more engaging,
yes,
more riveting. A lot of people will be glued in to see. I mean, we'll be seeing a whole lot of intellectual fireworks, not fisticuffs.
Yeah.
You know, we'll see people come up with different ideas, churn out different ideas that will take this country
forward.
So
when are you projected to hear back from the Constitutional Review Committee?
Yeah, they are already doing their job, and this is not the only section that needs amendment in our Constitution. So it's a holistic process. The moment they are done with all of that, they'll make it open to Nigerians.
How long will that take?
Well, I'm not in that committee.
Okay.
I'm not in that committee, so I can't tell exactly. This 8th Assembly is really, really desirous of ensuring that we give Nigerians a better constitution. So,
do you think we can hear back from them before the year ends?
You know, I hope so. I am sure they'll be rounding up in a short while. It's not just about me. You know, all I did was to let the cat out of the bag. Every other person should chase the cats. The youths there, they should engage their reps, those they voted for, tell them, demand from them that this is what you want, and you're supporting the Not Too Young to Run bill. Yeah. You know, get to your state assemblies. Should we need concurrent assents from the state assemblies, they need to get to them also to ensure that at the end of the day, we're having a smooth passage. I can assure you that this bill will make it to the Constitution.
In addition to youths, we have women who have been marginalized by our Constitution and Nigeria as a whole for way too long. Are women also a group of people that you're looking to champion, change, and end to the marginalization that we've been breading with for so long in this country?
Don't you think that a woman leading that would be better?
I think it's actually very powerful when it comes from a man, when it comes from an ally.
I think the women currently are not, in my own opinion, are not totally utilizing their quota, because I know there are certain quotas for women in political parties. You know, but then when I'm also talking about youth, women are also included. Don't take that away.
Okay.
You know, youth, both gender. So it's not. But then, if you're talking about the non-youth women, because now I'm championing the youth, which is inclusive. But then the non-youth women, of course, I believe they already have a quota out there. All they need to do is also.
But the quota isn't met in the 8th National Assembly.
That is exactly my point. That is where they need to engage. Most of them are members of the political parties.
Yes.
They all have women leaders. So it starts from their desk. The
but
women
something
leader,
you're willing to support, like if
absolutely.
The gender, for example, the gender and equal opportunities bill.
At that level of political inclusion for those certain age group, you find out that it is entirely the party affair. It's entirely your party affair. However, the party could say, okay, we're giving 40% to women, one other party can come out and say we're giving 50% to our
But
women.
a bill like the Gender and Equal Opportunities Bill, is that something you'll be willing to?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Honorable
Well,
Tony Wolu, thank you so much for granting us this interview. Do you have any final words to our viewers?
My final word to the youths is just be ready, because you're about to stop being the future leaders and become the now leaders. So let them be ready for the task and the responsibilities that comes with leadership.
Thank you so much, Honorable. I'll see you same time, same place next week. And until then, take very good care of yourself. Don't forget to follow us on social media at The Osasu Show on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. For more on this conversation, Not Too Young to Run Bill, you can visit our website, www.theosasushow.com. Take very good care of yourself.